So coming to this, we are working on something called as ternary operations. I'm coming to that ternary operations. What is a ternary operation? Whenever we have like a binary conditions, we can go for a ternary operation. Means, so there is a simple example. I gave like in number 1 is equal to 10. So 10 can be either even or odd. If you flip a coin, it can be either a head or a tail. Means in life there can be cases where there can be more than one option, right? So if any case when you're finding there are only two options, so in those cases we can go for the ternary operation. So what actually we do in ternary operation means, so in this example you can notice that it's working on same, yeah, this example when it is working using the ternary operation, what we do is like success case and failed case we need to specify. What I will do is like number 1 percentile 2 equivalent to 0. Same condition, right? So if it is true, then I will write that even first, and else condition is there, right? That I will write in the end. So it's the same number is there outside. I'm trying to use it like this condition. Now, if I write like this statement, either you write in a print statement or place into any variable or something. Did you see how I created this? 0, 3, 7, clear, and Python. So L so and so. So what is saying? It is throwing an error. Means we need to write the same if condition. So if condition. So here else condition. Did you see? Same if else I wrote it here. Now did you observe? What are the condition I wrote? I repeated the same. If I go for like some other thing, say if I give the same number 1 or anything, if number 1 is equal to 0, print 0, else print non-zero. So you have two conditions, right? You define a variable outside and you're doing the same thing. How you can implement same if condition. If condition I will write. When for the if condition, what are the solution is there? I need to write in the starting. And if you have an else condition, so that we need to write like this. So now this same thing I will place in a print. Now both will give the same answer. Hope you are able to digest what I'm trying to do. Now, if I take the third example, if I take like two numbers, number 1 comma number 2 is equal to 100 comma 200. Hope you know this is some kind of assignment called as tuple unpacking. Means you can write number 1 is equal to 100, number 2 is equal to 200 in two separate lines or in one line also. This concept is called as tuple unpacking. We will learn about tuples afterwards, but still I'm telling. If I have two numbers, then whichever is greater. So then means if number 1 is equal to number 2, we say like, number 1 is greater, right? So it is not like else condition. Here there are two more conditions. Means if number 1 is greater than number 2, that is also possibility, right? So, oh, sorry, both are equal, right? Is equal to number 2. So in this case, we write like number 1 is greater. And we have an else condition where print, we have number 2 is greater. So we have like three cases now. Three cases, this cannot be implemented. So note, so three cases, more than, so ternary operations are suitable only for two cases scenarios. Sir, I have a scenario writing. Now, how do you implement with a ternary operation? There is no straight away outline. You check the first condition. If not the first condition, we need to imbibe to the next condition. I'm trying to make it a bit complicated. With ternary operation, if you want to implement, this is one of the interview question actually. Interview question. So how do you implement with ternary operations the same thing? So first we have this condition. I take the same condition, say like this. If it is correct, we want to print this one, right? So yeah, so I will write like this. So this is my condition. If I want to write in multiple lines to better represent, I can write like this also, right? A logic I have in multiple lines. Like this, if I do, I can do. If both are equal, I can print it. Else, I need to have one more, this one. Observe what I'm trying to do. Again, this condition I'm checking. So if this condition is correct, I will print number one is greater. So else, this is this one, right? So else, now if I combine all of them, slowly you will understand. Did you all understand what I'm trying to do now? So I am trying to write like this in a print statement. So, or like I can go with one more brace for better understanding. One more brace. So slowly we'll understand. You see in this example, if it is true, you are getting it. In else condition, you are getting this one. Hope you are clear now. As we cannot write all in a single line, I am writing like this. So now we see what will happen if I execute. Did you see in both cases it's working? So this is one of the interview question. But I seldom prefer to go for a ternary operation when you go for more than one things. When you don't have more than one, it's okay. The biggest problem with these ternary operations, and next you will learn something called as comprehensions, is that readability will go. Whenever you want to debug, it would be very hard, right, to debug these things. So that's one thing. Next, recently, so for the past 2, 3 versions, they introduced a new kind of operations. In the same conditions, they added something called as structural pattern matching. There is something called as structural pattern matching. What do you mean by structural pattern matching? How it can help us? Let me take an example. Say a underscore example dot py about the structural pattern matching to understand. See, basically, what is the current version of Python that we are using? To understand which version we are using, Python hyphen version. So Python 3.10. But what is the latest version? If you go to python.org, you can get to know what is the latest versions. So 3.10.12 is the latest. But in reality, not everyone will use the latest version every time. Because so there are a lot of incompatibilities with the libraries that we are using. Or like the as an organization, they won't go. Especially if you go for larger banks, they want to do a lot of testing. So on any open source before adapting it. So definitely they will be behind the things. But how behind, we need to see that. Okay, that is the second thing. Now coming to the new program, how do you create? User bin Python 3. It's not mandatory, but it's a shebang line. Then the doc strings, which tells about the purpose of this particular program. This is also not mandatory as a best practice. And here, what we are telling about structural pattern matching, which is coming new in Python 3.10. So in this version came. So what is this concept? In other languages, we have concept of switch case. Switch case means when you have more than one if condition, like an elif ladder, if you have. In that case, every time writing elif, it's a very difficult thing. So generally we go with something called a switch case. It is not like a traditional switch case. It is something more than that. So what it does actually? So in traditional case, let's take the example of this one. We have this one, right? Number one equal to so and so. I wrote an if condition. I have two statements. Same like what we learned in the ternary operations. Here also we will learn clear and Python a so and so. So it will check whether number is greater than or equal to positive and it prints. That's what we do. Now, using the structural pattern matching, the same thing can be slightly implemented differently. What does we do? In other languages, we have something called a switch, right? If you go for a C, C++, or Java. So here we use a word called as match. It's a new keyword. So it was introduced. And what are the condition you have? You write that condition. You write the condition. And for that condition, what are things that you are expecting? When you evaluate this, it will be either true or false. Means only two things. So you write case true. Whenever things are true, you want to print it. So similarly, whenever that case is false, you can print it, right? Of course, it's a overkill for this small kind of action, but for bigger things, you will see better. The same thing can be implemented in this way. For small thing, you can think, why sir, you are complicating this much? But when you go big, you will understand more. To understand, I am giving like very small examples only again. So one more example to start with. So if I go for this real example, where we are defining a number in taking in runtime, and we are checking whether it is even or odd. So for the same thing, if I want to create a match case, how do I do? Same logic. You copy this content. Instead of an if condition, you write like match. So, and what is this results? Either it can be true or false. I can say case true, indentation, case true, you print it, case false, do it again. Case false, you can do it again. Or the same condition, you can also check in the other way, right? So if I take the same example again, so whenever you want to check something as even or odd, do you know that we need not even check for this one, right? Equivalent to 0. If I do like this, what it does mean? It is indirectly saying that it should be equal to or not equal to 0, right? If it is not equal to 0, then what happens? Things will be reverse. So else, so when you're doing something like this, indirectly you are checking whether it should be not equal to 0. So the things will be slightly different. So when I'm doing like this, it can result in a 0 or a non-zero. So correspondingly, I can do. So case 0, I will say. Case non-zero, not equal to 0. So some other values, whichever. But generally, in this case, you will have more than one value. So when you do a reminder, you can get like 1. So generally 0, 1, 0, 1, right? So when you get like the reminder as 0 or 1, if it is like 1, then obviously it would be an odd number. If it is 0, it's an even number. If you see right now, it is asking for a number. I gave 12. Did you see? Perfectly I got. Okay. For small things, it's kind of like a overkill. But if you go further, you will understand. So let me take the further example. Yesterday, I gave you an assignment for displaying the oval numbers. In the same fashion, if I go, okay, sure. If you want to get the oval numbers, generally what we do, yesterday I gave this program where you get a value character in runtime. You check that letter is present in either so AEIOU or capital AEIOU. So whichever you will check and you work on it. So what if user is passing like more than one character? Then you want to take the 0th character like that you want to do. Fine, I created some logic. Clear, run. So be so and so. If I give a character W, it says W is a consonant. If I give E, E is a lowercase vowel. If I give like capital E, It says E is a uppercase vowel. So you have three conditions now. Now, these three conditions I need to match. How I can do? The same thing I will write in like a match. So instead of an if condition, I write like a match. So when I did a match, I want to match for this letter. So it is not like a even condition. Means like it's not like, so what I'll do, case, letter, in, like this. Similarly, case, letter in this case. Similarly, case, letter in. So, okay. Similarly, the case is default. Till now you don't know what is an else condition. So, similarly, I can write like a else condition. If you observe now, so I wrote like a letter colon. Now, if you see here, what is it happening? So you wrote exactly replica as per your if condition, but still there is an issue. If I execute, it will throw an error. So what it is saying, hey, you are writing a in operator, means you are doing some expression during the case, right? So what is the point of match is that in the matching cases, you should not write the again a logic. So if you want to write, that should be done in a different way. If you do like a in operator, then it will throw an error. But you want to check like this, right? So for that, they introduce a new operators for this kind of scenario. So instead of you doing like this, there is a different way we can do. Means in operator means what? You want to check the letter. It can be A or E or anything, right? So for that, they introduced a new operators. The pipe operator is like a OR operator, like a bitwise OR. You remember? Same bitwise OR we will use. So what they said, whenever you want to check whether it is any of these things, we can go. So OR operations. So now you see the same thing works. If I give T, so if you see it is working. Now, in the same fashion, if you want to check something as a lowercase or anything, so instead of much explanation, I can simply tell like this. In this example, if you notice, letter.low oval is equal to IAIOU. I want to check whether it is a oval or not. That's it. Lower, upper, doesn't matter. In that case, what I can do? What are the thing that I'm taking? The same thing I will take. The results can be any of these things, like for an OR operation. For other case, it's an underscore. Did you see? So when you want to get like a else condition, like a default condition, we can go for this example. Or let's go for the example that we did in the last class, the office schedule that we created. So in terms of the office schedule, if you remember in the last class, we had discussed more about it, where I told that when you have like schedule from Monday to Friday and Saturday and Sunday differently, we can do with a typical if condition, or if the same condition value is there for multiple, we can define outside and use it, or we can use like a multiple OR operations and a logical and relational operations, or we can use a membership check I told, right? Now the same thing we will update further. So this is the latest best example that we have. So with this I will take and I will make further. So into today's class, yeah, the same example I took Monday. We are doing a title case and we are trying to strip the values. This is what is working. Now for this one, if you want to do the modification, so now I will introduce like method 5. So what should be the method 5? Please help me. So we should write like match. For whom we need to match? Week of the day, column. And we need to write the case. Case is what? The week of the day can be either of these things. right? So when you want to do the OR operation, what is the solution we have? So we can use the pipe operator. So we can add multiple by using a pipe operator. Okay. So when any of this thing is there, so we want this print statement to happen. So in the last case, we have like when week of the day equal to Saturday, you want the other thing to happen. So when you have case week of the day equal to so and so. Oh, so when is it equal to, right? I need not write again explicit condition. Case Saturday. So, and when you have the case underscore, we have like this. Now, don't you think the same thing I implemented, the code is much more clean, right? When you have multiple conditions also, you need not worry about too many things. So that is the beauty of going for this. Now, for this example, if I ask run Python and office schedule, if I say Monday, I got the same answer. Or if I do like Sunday also, I got the same answer. So that is the beauty of structural pattern matching. So not just these things, we can go for something more complicated also. So you can take the examples. Generally, uh, in real world, you will get a lot of examples, but we didn't go to complicated things. Let's say this is one good example. D example examples dot py. If I go further, say this example, if you notice here, I did like a point equal to 1 comma 2, point equal to 1 comma 2, like that I give. So if I take one point, I'm checking like this. It's not like a single value, it is multiple. So next you will learn about something called as tuple. This is a data type where you store the values like this. So you are checking the exact occurrence of it. Instead of complicating, I'm telling the simplest cases that you can understand and digest. So down the line, when you go for the classes and others, I will show you much more better things. But this is one example. And is there anything? Yeah, that's it. Now going further into the loops. In the loops, if I can see, there are two types of loops in Python. Other languages have like multiple ways, but Python has only two. One is the for loop, and the second one is while loop. So within the for loop also, if you come with like languages like C, you will see this kind of for loop where you define a variable, you assign some value, and you increment or decrement, and you write some condition. So this is how one kind of for loop is there. Some languages like PowerShell accept both kinds of things. But in Python, we have only one kind of loop where you define one iterable or any object, iterable object, and you loop over it. So range is one thing. Next, you will learn about list, tuple, set, or even string. So one iterable is there, you loop over it. Now coming to the new jargon called as, there are two types of data types in Python. So non-iterable objects like the basic int, float, none, boolean, these are very unique values, right? So they don't have like looping. But if you further go for different things, as of now, you saw only strings and range, but subsequently you'll see about different data types. These are all supporting for loops. So what's supported in Python is like, you define the object and we need to work. If I say something is not supported, can you prove that? Means like this. If I apply for loop on a integer, it will throw an error like int object is not iterable. The same thing works for other data types also. If I go further, int, float, system, all these things, int, float, none, boolean, all these things doesn't support. Only the strings will support. So we have seen for strings earlier also, and I'm going to show again also. If you see this example, I think one by one I will show. So to help you understand, if you see here in this example, print of pi. If I do like this, Python a so yeah. If I do a loop on it, I get like this. And you remember in so print when you are learning, I told you one options. Along with print, we can also give something like a end. If I do end is some value, after printing, instead of going to the new line, it will do some other things. And the default value is slash n. So if you do again that, you will get the same answer because that's the default. But instead of that, if you want to print everything in a single line, so you can do what? Int equal to, so I can write like a comma. If I say, instead of going to the new line, it will print all in the same line. And after printing, if you want some space also, I can add that. If you see now, it is happening. But if I go to the next statement, that's where the problem comes. So what if I do not just on the strings? So what if I do like this? Can I loop over it? Yes, of course. It is also a string, integer, but like a string. If anything is within quotes, it's a thing, right? It's a string. If you loop over it, did you see that one is coming after it? Means after entire complete for loop, the cursor should come to the new line such that next statements will be clean. So for that, we need to write an empty print. Now if you see, so now things are different. If I implement the same thing here again, say end equal to, and again a new print. So if you can see, the same thing is happening. So it is supporting a for loop. And generally, can we do a for loop on a integer? For each in 123.234 is there. So I want to print each. The same each. So I want to do with same end equal to space like that. Does it work? No. But what if you convert that to a string? The same thing. If you convert to a string, it supports for loop. In the same fashion, you can apply for a string or a none. So the same rules works. I converted to a string. So Boolean, I converted to a string. Then see, it is thinking like a characters. None, I converted to a string. It is thinking like a ordinary characters, like this. So the next important thing I want to tell is that let's take an example of for each char in, so the word Python. So till now what you are printing that each character. I'm printing the same thing. It works perfectly. But what if you want to get the loop index? Say loop count is equal to 0. Every time when you go into the loop, I'm printing the value and I want to increment it. Say I want to display the loop count, comma, this one. And if I do like this, then tell me what will happen. Every time the loop count is 0 itself. So if someone has an example with C language and others, you loop over it and you increment the value. So loop plus equal to 1, I did. Then what happens? You are getting the loop count, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As it is starting from 0, it works like this. But instead of you working and creating this kind of thing, Python supports like a built-in support using enumerate. This is another new built-in function that you will learn now. This enumerate can work on any function, so which is like supporting iterables. Means when you can do any object for loop, only using the for loop we can use it. Generally, if I say like, so print of enumerate of same Python, if I do, will it display? The beauty of Python is like everything like a lazy loading object. So you won't get the answer. If you want to get an answer from enumerate, Either you convert to a list or a tuple or anything, or loop over it. So generally what happens is like, when you loop over each character individually, what will happen? You get like individual characters. But if I loop over this one, I will get a pair of values. I will get a pair of values. If you ask it here, observe the difference. So just to let you know, so if I tell type of this each character, and each character I'm printing. Here also type of each pair, and each pair I'm saying. So in this case, you observe, in the first case, you are just doing an ordinary for loop. You get the strings, individual strings, you get it. Because it is a string, you are looping each character. Whereas in the second case, same characters you are getting. Along with that, did you see the number index is also coming? So that is the enumerate function. Whenever you want to get the loop index, when you are doing a for loop, only for the for loop, remember, not the while loop. So it will help us. So now you understood this concept of tuple unpacking, as I told in the previous thing. So tuple unpacking, what it does is that when you want to have two values assigned to the same variable, that is like an assignment operation. It will create like a tuple. When you have two values and two variables on either side, that is unpacking concept. So, but if you have like a two variables on one side and one value on the other side, that is not possible. Observe, generally unpacking means like the same number of variables and same number of values should be there on either side. So here, when you're assigning for enumerate only one value, you are getting like this, right? But what if you are assigning two variables? You will get two values, right? So just to let you know, so means what I will do is like, you take this example, fine. So in this example, what I am trying to do, earlier I have given a pair, only one variable I give, right? Instead of one variable, now assigning to two variables. They seem interesting. It works like this. If you assign like a single value, I got like that. But if I assign like two values now, individually, what are the data types you get it? Every time the first one will be the index, loop index. The second one will be the character or like what are the value it is. So if you want in a better way, instead of like this, in a better readable way, I can tell that like this. At position loop index, character is so and so. So this is much more readable, right? At position 0, character is so and so. At position 2, the character is so and so, like that. So if you want to get this loop index with some kind of offset, means every time you are getting loop index from 0 onwards, right? What if you don't want like that and you want the loop index to start from say -3? Then you need to give the optional value. So till now it will be 0. So that's why it is starting from 0 onwards. But if the same example I give, for enumerate, I'm passing -3. So did you see values are coming from -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, like that? So it works. So what if you want to give a positive offset? Say I'm going like this. If I give 77, now you observe difference. From 77, 78, 79, like that. Means the sequence will be continuous. So someone asked me a question. Sir, can we get like a discrete sequence? Means +2, +3, like that. There is no such concept. No like offset or something. Loop index means the continuous values will come. But what you can change is like the relative values from where it should start. In the same fashion, this kind of enumerate is not just supported for strings. I told that all the iterables starting from strings, range, list, tuple, etc. Next, you will learn about this list and others. For time being, let me show you. If you have any values loosely placed in a square braces, it's called as a list. If you loop over a list, you get each elements. In the same fashion, if you apply enumerate on the list, did you see what happened? So when you do enumerate on list also, you get two values. So earlier I assigned to two variables, right? So here what I'm doing, assigning to one variable only, it would be a tuple containing two elements. I'm getting the zeroth element and first element. So I'm making use of the concept of indexing. So indexing is same for all iterables, no matter whether it is a string or like a list or a tuple or anything. Or if you can assign to two variables also, you can do. See, assigning to single variable, accessing zero and first value, or here in this case, you are doing like unpacking and using them individually. In all these cases, it works. So not just thing. So here also we can apply offsetting. I just took for like these thing -50. See here, if I execute, did you see -50, -49 like this it happening? So it will come in a positive sequence, right? So now similarly, you perform the assignment on different other data types. So you can do another range object. Okay.